Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Giant Take podcast. I'm Josh, joined by my friend and co host Alex. And we have someone joining us if you're watching at the bottom of the screen. That is not a familiar face. It is my friend who also attends here at Syracuse University in the Newhouse School, yada, 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 all the journalism stuff. My friend Nick King. We were actually neighbors in our dorm last year. And Nick is so graciously joining us from inside his vehicle. So please don't be driving during this episode, Nick. We'd really appreciate it so everyone can stay safe here. But how are you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
I, I'm doing great. I'm happy to be in my car as opposed to out in the cold or inside where it is loud and echoey. But I appreciate you having me on, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we wanted to have you on for anyone who's like, why is this happening? Well, you already heard in the intro, but just to reiterate, when I knew that the Giants were playing the Commanders, I was like, okay, we have to have Nick on because he is the only. But actually, that's not true because Adam is as well. But one of the only Washington Commander fans that I know, and obviously a diehard at that. He wears his Redskins jersey. Don't want to get canceled there, but it is a Redskins jersey before they made the name and logo change around campus a lot. It's got a few of them. So yeah, actually, Nick, let's first start there of what jerseys do you own to this point?
Oof. I mean, I have way too many, most of them hand-me-downs, and most of them old school players. I do have one new one. It's the alternate black Jayden Daniels, but I have Sonny Jurgensen, 60s and 70s quarterback, Billy Kilmer, 70s quarterback, John Riggins, former running back, and Darrell Green, Hall of Fame cornerback. Top three corner of all time, fastest NFL player of all time. I will die on that hill.
I'll follow up with this. If you could only keep one of them, which one would it be?
Jayden. Jayden, because Jayden's the only player that I've had the privilege of watching in real time. Everybody else
True.
were the glory days that my parents or older fans talk about. I haven't experienced the glory days. The glory days for me were last year. And
Yeah.
this year I was expecting a continuation of those glory days, and that didn't come to fruition. But I mean, I still believe in Jayden. I hope to be repping the Jayden jersey for another decade or so, willing he stays healthy, which I'm sure we'll touch on later. But I gotta stay with my boy JD5.
Yeah, so I mean, you kind of went with it a little bit there, Nick, and that's what we want to get into from basically the wonder year that was last year. Because Alex and I would kind of sit here since we started this podcast in 2020 and say the Commanders were the little brothers of the NFC East, especially for the Giants, because in a team that sucked, that's gotten 5 wins over the last 5 years, the Commanders have been basically one of it's like it was a guaranteed win on the schedule every year. It was for some reason the Giants always had your guys' number. But then last year, turning it on in a big way in Daniels' rookie season. So, what happened to where now the Giants and Commanders are looking at top 5 picks in the 2026 NFL draft?
Well, I think you have to look at three things. And I don't think any of them are excuses outside of the first one. And number one is injuries. This team has had over 24 players either go on IR or miss a game or more. And that includes your franchise quarterback in Jayden Daniels. That includes your star wide receiver in Terry McLaurin. That includes your second and third wide receiver in Debo Samuel and Noah Brown. If you want to really accentuate this issue, Chris Moore leads this team in snaps by a receiver, and he got cut just a few days ago by the Commanders. This team has been decimated with injuries offensively and defensively. Dorrance Armstrong, gone. Will Harris, gone. The defensive line has been absolutely abolished. That's number one. And number two is just blatantly defense. Joe Witt Jr. came into the season, I would say, with a little bit of cushion in Washington, D.C. He's coming off a 12-5 season where necessarily the defense was not the backbone of the team. It was the offense. And the defense was completely exposed this year. A lack of pressure up front, no help in the secondary. The Marshawn Lattimore trade, clearly a failure. Everybody seemingly regressing. And there's no way this team can get off the field. You saw it last Sunday. J.J. McCarthy entering Sunday's game, his best QBR was 30 points lower than what he ended up with against the Commanders defense. Absolutely inexcusable. You make a guy that looks, quite frankly, like one of the biggest busts since Josh Rosen, look like an elite level quarterback is insane. And then third off, for me, is just the fact that this is an aging roster. It was the talking point during the offseason all over social media. Washington's coming off a 12-5 season, but they have the oldest roster in the NFL. Bobby Wagner, you have Josh Johnson as your third string quarterback, which of course drove that up. But you have Von Miller, aging veterans, Zach Ertz. That leads to injury, and that also just leads to a lack of speed. And in a young, fast league where careers are short and players are often in their early 20s to late 20s, that's just not going to fly. And you saw it early on. They were outmatched against the Falcons, a young, fast team. They just couldn't keep up.
And, I think the age is definitely a big issue for the Commanders. But I mean, Jayden Daniels being out for such a significant portion of the season, I think is the real killer, at least from the outside looking in. I mean, how do you kind of think his, I guess, inavailability or unavailability has really impacted you guys? Because Marcus Mariota, obviously, similar type of quarterback, a much lower caliber, but do you think that's kind of transitioned the way the offense has been playing? And then, of course, obviously, adding more pressure on the defense as well.
Well, absolutely. And there's a group of fans in our very illogical fan base that think that there is no difference between Marcus Mariota and Jayden Daniels. That's just not true. Jayden Daniels is a better deep ball thrower. He has better anticipation. And in all honesty, he's a more mobile runner. I think the only thing that Mariota does better than Daniels is those QB power designed runs. But off script and accuracy wise, Jayden is better. And you hinted at it, Alex. It does a lot for this team. Jayden Daniels was the backbone of the team last year. The defense wasn't good last year. Worst rushing defense in the NFL behind the Bengals. But Jayden Daniels, through his skill, was able and willing to carry this team to a 12-5 record and one game away from the Super Bowl. When you eliminate that star power, that absolute poise out of a young quarterback, you have nearly no chance. And granted, I don't think this team, if Jayden had played every single game leading up to this point, would be a contender in the NFC. But I will say they probably would have 3 or 4 more wins. I think they would have beaten the Broncos a week ago with Jayden Daniels, or 2 weeks ago rather, with Jayden Daniels. I think some of those other close contests, they would have at least had a fighting chance. But with Daniels out and this offense pretty inept without him, because you lack the ability to throw it deep, you have no vertical threat, and the accuracy of the quarterback is in question. I mean, this team has basically been set up for failure, and it starts with the fact that Daniels has been decimated injury wise and has had no help.
Yeah, I want to ask Nick as a Washington fan, and I guess like each week has gone on from going to that, oh, we're gonna get 10 wins or more or not, whatever it is, to then it's slowly the season deteriorating. As a Giants fan, we've known the season has been over since October. So, we've been just hoping for that number one pick or something close to it to then build around Jackson Dart with a wide receiver or offensive tackle. Have you still settled in or are you settled in now of, okay, now I want a good pick? Do you want to win these next few games coming up? Like, where is your mindset of, oh, I want help for Jayden Daniels, or is it, I want more reps for these guys, I want wins on the board?
I think you have to look at two things here. Number one, and this might be a little bit of a diversion from your question, but Washington is in a very unique spot right now. They have a brand new ownership group and they're hoping to build a stadium. Right now, the ownership group, for financial purposes, needs some sort of success. And as a result, players are going to want to have to come here if this team wants to compete. So, yes, it would be great to have a top 5 pick, of course. That way you could target somebody like Caleb Downs or Ruben Bain, somebody that could really enhance your defense. But with that said, you need some sort of forward momentum going into next year. You have an elite quarterback on his rookie contract. You need to maximize your window. And that starts with having top tier players want to come play in DC. Now, everybody raves about the culture that head coach Dan Quinn has created. However, that culture is slowly going to start to decline if this team keeps losing games. So sure, it would be great to have a top 5 pick. And honestly, I'm of the group where if they can just win 2 of these games, that's fine. I don't need them to win all 4. Because I don't think they're going to win all 4. I think they might lose all 4. But you can't end the season on 12 straight losses because that means you'll have absolutely zero mojo going into next year. And not only will the head coach be coaching with his back against the wall, but he might be doing it with a worse roster. You have to have some sort of momentum that hopefully starts with a win Sunday against the Giants, a couple close contests against the Eagles, and maybe you sneak out a win against the Cowboys for a Christmas miracle on December 25th. But other than that, I think that's basically your expectation right now as a Washington fan is 5-12 is kind of what you've got to hope for at this point. That way you have something going into next year.
Yeah, I was going to bring up that it's a very strange end of the year, right? You got 4 divisional opponents in a row, which is like unheard of a lot of the time. And obviously the Eagles, now you have, 2 games against the Eagles, one against the Cowboys, one against the Giants. And the Eagles obviously coming off I'll just say rough performance on Monday Night Football, but these are not impossible games to win for the Commanders. They wouldn't be impossible games to win for the Giants, but it is, looking at the momentum that the Commanders lost, obviously with that loss against the Broncos, if you win that game, maybe it turns things a little bit around for that final stretch. I'll say this, right? We sit here talking at the end of pretty much every season, like, should the Giants lose? Should they win? Should we be rooting for them to win? I mean, I'm one of those people who wants to see my team win no matter what. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm sure many people would disagree with that mindset, but I think things kind of just work out in the NFL. And the Giants, for example, even just a few years back, I'm sure you remember the Chase Young Bowl, right? And that ended up working in the Giants' favor. So, of course, then there was the Drake May, Jayden Daniels draft in which we missed out on both those guys. So then you could say, we won and that didn't work out for us. So I think it kind of is just you roll with the punches, roll with the bumps in the NFL. But would you say generally your fan base, because I'm curious, because I really don't talk to a lot of Commanders fans, would you say your fan base is much more pro tanking or pro, I guess, winning? Because the Giants and Commanders have had a relatively similar trajectory over the past, 10 or 15 years.
Definitely more in the tanking boat. And
Yeah.
I think that's just the difference is right now is that you guys, the Giants, have 2 Super Bowls this century. Washington has 3 playoff wins. That's a large difference. Under Dan Snyder, this fan base became decimated, and the fans that stuck around got used to losing. They got used to hoping for next year. And unfortunately, and I like to say it sort of like how in the Shawshank Redemption, Brooks says it to Tim Robbins' character or whatever his name is. I'm blanking, but it's fine. Right now, Washington fans have been institutionalized. They have been institutionalized to expect the worst, and they have been institutionalized to expect losing and to become almost okay with it. So right now, I think a majority of the fans, though they are smart and realize that, hey, we have Jayden Daniels, we can have a chance next year. I don't think that this season, at this point, after the initial shock value with the loss to the Bears and then the blowout against Seattle and the decimation at the hands of Detroit, I think right now they're in the mindset of let's just lose. Let's lose. Let's get a top 5 pick. Let's either trade back for more picks and compensation, or let's draft a high key player. And I think it's just because in this century, this team has experienced such minimal success in some horrible, heinous seasons. I understand the Giants have had it rough, but 2 Lombardis in 25 years is nothing to frown about. Some teams don't have any in 59, 60 years. So right now, I think this team is just used to losing. The fan base is used to losing, and they've kind of accepted the fact that they just want a top 5 pick.
I hate toppling on to what you just said, but I mean, we mentioned the Broncos game at this point like at least 3 times. No one said anything about last weekend's game, and I'm sure you wouldn't have been the one to bring it up, and I hate to be the one to bring it up. But 31 unanswered points from Minnesota, getting 0 in a ball game is rough. To watch Mariota a little bit, to watch Daniels, I would say, well, yeah, more than him. He had 20 passing attempts in that game compared to Mariota's 4. I mean, just that. I mean, listen, we've had some defeating losses this season, but the Giants have mostly held it close. We're the team that held it close for 4 quarters and either goes to overtime and loses, or lets 31 points unanswered just happen to us in the 4th quarter alone. So how did that game feel just watching it entirely unfold after a game against the Broncos that went all the way to OT?
You know when you're driving down the highway and you see a car crash and it's gross, but you just can't help but look away? That's how I felt watching this game. And it felt like one of my loved ones was in the car that crashed because it was so destructive and such a reversal from what this team was literally less than 12 months ago. And I don't really think it was the offensive side of the football. This team drove the ball initially. And I think Cliff Kingsbury, the OC, called a terrible game. If you look at the opening drive, Washington, a nice methodical drive, gets all the way down to the 2-yard line, second and goal. Chris Rodriguez, their starting running backs, has 5 carries for 39 yards on the opening drive. They don't run the ball once. They don't run the ball once with 3 downs, 2 yards away from the end zone. That's terrible. That's inexcusable. I don't think Jayden played his best. You look at his interception where he hurt his elbow on the ensuing return. He checks to that screen on the side of Andrew Van Ginkel, who everybody in the league knows is going to blow up that play. Those are my 2 big issues with the offense. I think right now I have a hard time evaluating Jayden Daniels' season because he's missed so much time and because he hasn't played with his starting targets. With that said, the defensive performance is inexcusable. It is grotesque. It was grotesque. 31 points to that team, a Minnesota Vikings team that has been literally unnaturally bad on offense all season with probably, and I'm not joking when I say this, the 48th or worst quarterback in the NFL. I don't think J.J. McCarthy is better than half of the league's backups. And he tears your defense up for 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, completes over 70% of his. I mean, what's going on? That's inexcusable. That is seriously just a lack of discipline. And it showed me right there and right then, this team needs at least 5 or 6 new starters on defense heading into 2026, or else this team has no chance.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you said it best there, Nick. I'm sure all of our 3 TikTok for you pages are pretty similar, where we see those podcasters say, "I can name this many quarterbacks better than whatever it is," and yeah, I saw that one, and definitely I agreed with probably at least 35 of those that are better than JJ McCarthy for sure. I got one more for you, and you mentioned it earlier. You get granted a Christmas wish of watching a 1 o'clock game between the Commanders and Cowboys. But I want to know, will you be attending that game in person? I know you go to at least a couple every year. Are you and your family taking the trip over to FedEx Field for that one, or no, we're watching in the comfort of our home?
Josh, I want to have a Merry Christmas, a Happy Christmas. A happy Merry Christmas does not involve trekking up to the sludge that is or Northwest Stadium now and watching this team potentially get their butts absolutely whooped against the Dallas Cowboys, your biggest division rival. Listen, I'm going to watch it from the comfort of my home. At this point, I'm so appalled and so entranced by the horror of this season that I just can't help but look away. I'll be watching from my home. I thought about going preseason, like, hey, this would be fun. Not a chance. There's a better chance snowing down here in Virginia Beach than it does me actually going up to watch the Commanders play the Cowboys on Christmas Day.
Well, that's all I got, Alex. Anything else from you? I mean, I think this is a perfect Commander's perspective that we could have gotten, and unfortunately, it just does. It seems like the miserable ways just get handed back to the bottom of the division, and the Giants and the Commanders, while the Cowboys are apparently on the up. I don't know. Maybe they make the playoffs, and the Eagles
Allegedly.
have been on cloud 9 for a while at this point. So.
Positivity Rabbit didn't do much for the Eagles, and the Cowboys right now have a per analytical whatever an 11% chance to make the playoffs, which trust me does not upset me at all.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
complaints here.
Yeah, I mean, it is always fun to watch the Cowboys get bounced in a wild card game here and there, and I wouldn't imagine anything different if they were to make it. So that's what I would have there. Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I was telling you before, I was like, I don't remember the last time we had a friend on this show, and I mean, I think Alex and I agreed that last time was like our third episode of this podcast years ago. So we thank you for joining us. Nick has been a big part, especially of obviously the same clubs that I do, but a big part of Citrus TV. So if you want to go check his stuff out there, AP, associate producer on No Pulp, the college football show there, now going to be the EP of that show. He's going to be on Q's Countdown. Also helped out with Orange Press Pass, the postgame show. So he's got it all figured out there at the TV station.
This is
so
a busy
Nick,
guy.
Busy guy, and I still
Alex,
have time to watch this horrible team. Still find a way to watch them.
that's what we say too. But anyways, yeah, Nick, thank you so much for taking the time, man. Appreciate it.
Of course, guys. Thanks for having me.